911, what's the address of the emergency? 911.
I need help. My husband.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
I need help. I need help. My husband was shot. I need help.
During the late hours of December 31, 2018, just after 11 p.m. New Year's Eve, a troubling call was received by St. Joseph's Police Department. A woman reported a horrifying incident of her husband gunned down by an unknown psychopath who drove away right after killing him. Upon arrival, they found Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III, a 23-year-old lying lifeless close to his car and his wife crying profusely right beside him. She seemed to be in shock and disbelief, but unknown to everyone, it was all a plot by her, the so-called caller, and her secret boyfriend to get a substantial military benefit attached to his name. This is a terrifying story of a man brutally killed by the people he felt the safest with. A story of pretense and an investigative process that opened up one of the most mysterious cases the officers had ever seen. Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III was born into Hassel's family. Tyrone was an intelligent young man who had his life ahead of him. Tyrone was athletic, spontaneous in all he did. He was loved by many. He was one who was a perfection, and this too showed in his grades, which earned him a scholarship into Grand Valley State University. However, Tyrone had dreams far beyond the four walls of a classroom. He always dreamt of being in the Army. Soon after, Tyrone left to join the Army because he wanted to serve and give back to his country. Tyrone's dad and mom got separated. He then got married to Ashanti Hassel, who gave birth to other kids for him. Tyrone was the pride of his family and the people in his neighborhood, not just for his dedication to his duties, but also for the fact that he brought great pride to them, being one of the first to join the Army from that neighborhood. After getting recruited into the Army, Tyrone's superior talents were evident. His spirit of perfection showed evidently, which saw him quickly rise to the post of a sergeant at a very young age, too. He was so good that no one could find any fault with him. Colleagues and superiors all loved him, or so everyone thought, as a mighty revelation would be revealed later. But before then, Tyrone had a great future ahead of him, and he was about to make one of the first major steps in his life. While in the Army, Tyrone met Kemia Hassel, a 22-year-old woman. Tyrone had never felt so distracted all his life at the time. He was so drawn to her that all that mattered to him at the time was to be with Kemia. However, Tyrone's love for Kemia went far beyond just mere physical attraction. There was something about Kemia that drew him even nearer. Kemia was an ambitious young woman. Raised solely by her family, not much was known about her, but it was certain that she grew up with her mom. After going to high school, she soon joined the Army. There, Kemia saw Tyrone. She too exhibited glaring signs of love for him, so it could be safe to say that Tyrone's endearment to her could also have come from his observation of that. Tyrone loved her so dearly that all he did was talk about her to his friends and family. But little did Tyrone know that Kemia had motives far beyond any love for him. To Tyrone, it was love at first sight, but to Kemia, it was an opportunity to be with someone who will cater for her needs. Kemia knew how much Tyrone loved her, and she was determined to use it as an advantage over him. Tyrone, on the other hand, who had no idea of this, was ready to take things with her to the next level with any hesitation. Tyrone asked Kemia to be his wife. While it could be said that Tyrone's intentions were pure, the idea of marriage was suitable for both of them, as it saw Tyrone realize his pure intentions of love. On the other hand, it set the motion for Kemia's plan to the next level. Shortly, the pair got married and finally came home at Thanksgiving to meet his father. Tyrone had great news for them. Tyrone called his mom to inform her she was going to be a grandmother soon. She was beyond happy and blessed to welcome her grandson. Things took a toll quickly, and the baby was indeed born. It was a boy. However, quite early into their marriage, situations beyond their control began to take a toll on them, and they got their first hit. Barely a week after their son's first birthday, they were deployed to South Korea in February 2018. According to U.S. policy, the couple were not allowed to be in the same unit, so they were both placed in separate units and on different bases. This signaled the beginning of the end for them. While in South Korea, the unimaginable happened. Kemia met Jeremy Cuellar, a 24-year-old soldier on base while serving at the time. Jeremy grew up in Chicago with his mom, which is an hour's drive away from Tyrone's family house. This fact wasn't going to stop what was about to happen. Jeremy and Kemia began to develop feelings for each other. The two began secretly having an affair, and as someone who wasn't interested in her relationship with Tyrone, Kemia would complain about how badly Tyrone was treating her, not seeing her worth, her importance, and never understanding. Jeremy was infatuated by her. Kemia, on the other hand, was using him in order to achieve her plans that would soon be revealed. 9 months later, they returned to the States to settle in Hinesville, Georgia. Tyrone and Kemia went to his father's house to spend the holidays. But little did Tyrone know what awaited him. On that fateful day, Tyrone asked Kemia to accompany him to visit his parents. But Kemia said Tyrone should go be with his family so they could bond. But unknown to Tyrone, a plan with Jeremy was already in motion, and she did that to lure him out alone so her mission with Jeremy could be carried out. Unaware of the situation, Tyrone innocently left to visit his father, while Kemia stayed at home with their son. Tyrone, being the caring husband and father he was, called and asked if he could bring food for them, and she accepted. But Tyrone still didn't know that this was all part of a plan. Unknown to him, Kemia and Jeremy have plotted to kill him severally, but the opportunity never presented itself. Not until this day, January 31, on New Year's Eve at about 11 p.m. The pair meticulously planned their every move, so much that they used a more secure version of social media. Kemia and Jeremy usually communicate through Snapchat because it deletes every conversation after 24 hours. To this end, the plan was beginning to get to advanced stages. Kemia was informing Jeremy of Tyrone's every move and his current location, so the plan became all the more easier when Tyrone ordered to bring food for them. After delivering the food to Kemia, Tyrone asked that he stayed back with them, but she insisted he returns back, because the plan can never be in full motion if he stayed with them. Unknown to Tyrone, the plan had reached its last stage, and the unimaginable was about to happen. Tyrone, innocently going back to his car, noticed a suspicious man in a car who seemed like he was trailing him. At first, he's shocked and mounts his guard, but then he was relieved to see it was Jeremy, his colleague from work who, by all normal reasoning, had a right to be there and to have a weapon with him. But what Tyrone didn't know was that, in this circumstance, the weapon was meant for him. Jeremy came down from his car, shooting Tyrone with a Ruger 9mm handgun multiple times to make sure he didn't survive it. But this was just the first part of the plan. On hearing the shots, Kemia rushed out wailing and crying, and in an instant he called 911, crying in panic that her husband was shot by an unknown man. After that, she called Tyrone's father. Tyrone's father was shaken and couldn't believe his son was really gone. Just minutes earlier, they were laughing and talking like everything was fine. Now Tyrone was dead. It hit him hard how short life could be. But even through the pain, he thought about the kind of person Tyrone was. Kind, respectful, always calm. He was proud of the man his son had become, and deep down, he just wished Tyrone had gotten the chance to grow old. But not so fast, because there was a glimmer of hope. The medics and dispatch showed up just in time. When they found a pulse, they did everything they could to bring Tyrone back, but nothing worked. They rushed him to the hospital, the same one where his stepmother was. But not long after they arrived, the doctors said what everyone feared. Tyrone was gone. The glimmer of hope was dashed before everyone, and now the police were to focus on the most important task at hand. Detectives came back to the scene and quickly locked it down. At first, they figured it was just a robbery. Then they thought maybe Tyrone was mistaken for someone else, especially since his half-brother ran with a gang. But when they took a closer look at where Tyrone's body was found and saw that nothing had been touched or taken, they knew right then this wasn't just some random crime. It was something deeper. While asking around for any leads, detectives came across an elderly neighbor named Walter Nost. He was friendly and willing to talk. Walter said he had seen a guy named Jeremy hanging around the area. What stood out was that Jeremy always parked in the garage of a house that was up for sale, just a few steps away from Tyrone's place. According to Walter, it looked like Jeremy had been watching Tyrone for a while. That day, Jeremy showed up in a dark-colored sedan with bright LED headlights. He jumped out and ran toward Hassel's house, but then stopped when he saw Tyrone. Without saying much, he got into Tyrone's car and, just like that, they sped off. The autopsy showed Tyrone had been shot 5 times. 4 bullets hit around his head, and one struck his shoulder. All of them were fired from just 3 to 5 feet away. It looked like whoever pulled the trigger wanted Tyrone to see it coming. On January 11th, 2019, 11 days after the shooting, an anonymous call came in around 11 a.m. The caller told the police to look into Tyrone's wife. They mentioned a fight had broken out between Tyrone and her lover. Not long after that tip, 2 soldiers from Fort Stewart's Army Criminal Investigation Division stepped forward. One of them revealed that Kimia had been having an affair with Jeremy. The soldier who came forward had been Jeremy's bunkmate. He said Jeremy used to talk about how obsessed he was with Kimia. Their relationship had started back when they were both stationed in South Korea. After returning to the US, they kept in touch through Snapchat. Jeremy liked it because the messages disappeared after 24 hours, making it easier to hide the affair. The soldier said Jeremy wasn't just in love, he was obsessed. He even told him he'd do anything to be with Kimia, even kill for her. Tyrone eventually finds out about the affair, but he never stops loving Kimia. He kept it to himself, hoping things would change. Later that same day, the second soldier spoke up. He told investigators that he had sold Jeremy 2 handguns. One was a Glock, the other a Ruger 9mm, just 2 weeks before the shooting. The description matched the weapons used in Tyrone's murder. Through all of this, Kimia never mentioned the affair with Jeremy. She kept everyone in the dark about what had really been going on. The affair, the confrontation between Tyrone and Jeremy. When the police spoke to her, she promised to cooperate and said she'd provide any information she could about the case. But she never revealed the truth about her relationship with Jeremy. Jeremy told him everything in vivid detail, describing how he spent his Christmas break. He said he stayed at his mom's house in Chicago, then drove to Benton Harbor where Kimia's in-laws live. He spent 3 to 4 days there, keeping an eye on them, waiting for Tyrone to come home. When Tyrone finally stepped out of the house, Jeremy followed him to the driveway and shot him multiple times. He walked up to Tyrone's body, stepped over him, and shot him again. On January 11 at 10 p.m., deputies from a Georgia county showed up at Jeremy's home to execute a search warrant and arrest him. Inside his car's backseat, they found a 9mm magazine that fit perfectly into the Ruger pistol used in Tyrone's murder. When investigators examined the bullets, they found they matched those recovered from the crime scene. 11 days after Tyrone's death, Jeremy was officially charged with first-degree murder. Kimia was brought to the police station with her father-in-law. After being questioned, she finally admitted to conspiring with Jeremy to kill Tyrone. It turned out this was all part of Kimia's grand plan to collect the $400,000 insurance money that was set to be paid out after Tyrone's death. She wanted that money so badly, hoping it would help her start a new life with her son and Jeremy. While the case was still unfolding, Kimia called her mother from the station. With a heavy heart, she confessed to being the mastermind behind the entire murder plot. Her mother was devastated and filled with disappointment. She couldn't hide her anger and sorrow, bitterly frowning at what had unfolded. 6 months after Kimia's arrest, 23 witnesses testified in court, and Kimia's confession was presented as evidence. After 2 long hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict, finding Kimia guilty on all counts: first-degree premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and using a gun to commit a crime. She was sentenced to spend the rest of her life in prison, leaving her son behind to be raised by her mother. Kimia showed no remorse for her actions, nor did she ever apologize to Tyrone's family. It was a heartbreaking ordeal for them, especially knowing they had to bury a young man with so much potential, someone they had big dreams and hopes for as a parent. This story makes us understand that love is never enough, so be sure of those you get entangled with. Sometimes entering the wrong marriage like this one can lead you to a short time on Earth. What do you think Tyrone could have done differently? Do you blame him for allowing love to lead, or is this a warning to always put love aside and think with your brain most times? Let me know what you think in the comments section below.